In our last video, if you remember, we talked about the fact that there are 30 million businesses in the US. That's a great number. And remember that I said about 88% of them have less than 20 employees? Here's what you may not know. That of all those businesses, or the 30 million businesses, only 9% or 2.7 million businesses ever hit $1 million or more in revenue. There's not a lot of them. So I'm here to change that. In today's video, we're gonna talk about the 5 steps that you gotta follow in order to hit $1 million in revenue and do that fast in 12 months or less. Hey everybody, welcome to Scaling to 7 Figures and Beyond. I am your host, Leo Landaverde, and I am passionate about helping businesses grow to 7 figures and beyond. And I'm very happy that today I have my good friend Josh Gilbert, a payroll expert and great friend of mine and a strategist. We're gonna dive into this whole thing about the 5 steps. If you're ready to grow your business to 7 figures and beyond while creating the financial freedom and the lifestyle you want, then subscribe to this channel and don't forget to hit the bell, so you'll be notified every time a new video comes out. I love this quote. An entrepreneur is someone who jumps off a cliff and builds a plane on the way down. Who said that? Reid Hoffman, co-founder and CEO of LinkedIn. And number 1 is mindset. And here's why mindset is so important. As I was preparing for the content of this show, and I thought it was vital that I share it with a few of my friends who know me very well, I just happened to run into my good friend Josh, and who not only is a great friend, but a trusted business partner, who we refer each other business. We've grown our businesses together. And the more Josh heard about it, the more he wanted to be part of it. So Josh, I'm so grateful that you're here.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here, Leo. I mean, we connected the first time we met and just kind of instantly started doing business. But I think what's really interesting about this is you've lived it. Yeah. You know, you've been in the trenches, so to speak, just like a lot of the people you're talking to right now. And I just thought it'd be great for them to hear from you. Why is mindset the first one? And why are you a subject matter expert here? Because I think it'd be great to get a little background on who Leo is.
Well, thank you. Well, Josh, I am a consummate, serial entrepreneur. This is my 4th company. I've built multiple businesses. I built businesses that made it over $10 million in sales. I have small businesses. I've made millions and I've lost millions. And I think the thing that keeps coming back to me, it's mindset. It's whatever you think it is, whether, Henry Ford once said that whether you think you're right, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And that really encapsulates mindset, because the mentality that got you here won't get you there. So here's the interesting thing. As I said at the beginning of the video, only 9% of all businesses in the US ever hit $1 million. And I think it's like a mental block. A lot of people can't make it past 7 figures because they don't believe that they can. And that's the important thing about mindset. You gotta believe it. Now, there's this concept, when the air gets rare as you go up and higher in altitude. And that's why people need an oxygen tank as they go up, for the people that have gone up to like Mount Everest and the like. As you're climbing up, the oxygen gets rarer and rarer, and it's harder to breathe, and you get uncomfortable, and you need and so you need to acclimate yourself to every stage of when oxygen is less. Well, the same happens to us financially. And I believe in mindset so much that I wrote a book about it, the Unbreakable Mindset. And here's what I learned as I was going through that if you only ever made $500 a month, how can you hang out with people who are making $5,000 a month? The air is rare at those altitudes financially. Well, let's take it to another level. If you only have a business that only produces $10,000 in sales, and you walk into a room where everybody makes $1 million a month, how will you feel?
It's overwhelming. You don't know what to do.
It's overwhelming. So mindset, it's everything. And I think one of the biggest principles that I can share with you guys on mindset is that you gotta dig deep. You gotta have something that drives you, that is not about the making of the money. It's not about making the millions. It's the why. Simon Sinek wrote a great book, Start with Why. You gotta start with why. Mindset is wired. It's like when the buzzer goes off in the morning as you get up, what gets you out of bed? What compels you to get off the bed and go into? It's your mindset. What is it that you believe in? And you gotta dig deep because it's gonna be hard. And the reason why the mortality rate is in businesses is very, very high, and why most businesses won't ever make it past 3 years, or let alone 5 years, is because they just stop trying. There's a story of the Chinese bamboo tree, and it's a really great story. In Asia, they have a thing called the bamboo tree. Now, this thing, it needs to be watered, it needs to be cared for every day for 5 years. And nothing happens for the first nothing happens for the first almost 5 years. And in 6 to 7 weeks, this tree will grow up 90 feet in 6 to 7 weeks. Now it begs the question in the bamboo tree. Now, did it take 5 years to grow? Right? Did it grow in 5 years, or did it just grow in 6 weeks?
It's all about the roots. So where do the roots come from? I mean, what is your why? You mentioned why. What is yours? As you've started Greenland, you continue to grow it. What's your why?
You know what? Thank you. I wish, hindsight is 20/20 once you've gone over anything, right? When you can see clearly. One of the businesses that I built failed. And I think I learned more about a business that failed than everything else. He gave me like a $500,000 MBA. And I am so passionate because I know what it's like to fail. Had I known then the things that I've learned now about some of these principles that I teach my clients, it would have been better, right? But I am on a mission to help business owners decodify and make the whole running of a business, make it, just make them successful. I have clients that have MBA degrees, but nothing prepares you for business. Nothing prepares you to be a parent, right? You just become a dad. And there's no book that comes with your child. You just become a dad, right? And you have to figure it out. Well, that's what business is like. You're jumping off a cliff into the unknown, and you have to build a parachute on the way down. That you're wired for, but if you don't really have somebody helping you out, you're not gonna make it. And because I've been there, I have fallen and I have gotten up, I'm able to help people with just that. I want you to succeed.
I think failure is probably our best teacher. I think a lot of people would say that. So when you lost your business and lost millions, as you said, how did you pick yourself up? Because you had to get to a point where you were ready to write that book. So to write Unbreakable Mind, Unbreakable Mindset, excuse me. How did you get to the point where you could sit down and actually write it?
You have to feel the pain. I think I had to get to the point that you have to feel the pain. You have to understand what you went through. And you really have to understand it wasn't about your identity, or my identity was not tied to my business. What happens to a lot of business owners is their entire identity is wrapped up around the business, right? When your identity doesn't live outside of the business and it's all wrapped up in the business and the business fails, there goes everything. So I had to really build my everything again outside of anything. And then I really value I really had to learn how to value what is most important. So I had to really journal. What helped was journaling, really reading and becoming really keenly aware of my thoughts. And I learned how to create vision boards and a lot of things that we can go into a whole separate video for that. But I think I really had to become familiar with failure. And the sooner that you fail, the better. It's like even when we've been doing the show, right? The sooner we make mistakes, the sooner we get them out of the way and we go to the next level. And most people are not equipped to fail. And they are afraid to fail. So if you're watching this video, failing, it's okay. And you gotta get that out of the system, and you gotta get it quicker out of you. So that's a little bit of mindset.
So Lee, I noticed step number 2 for you is model. So why model? What does that mean? And maybe you could walk us through that.
Yeah, great question. So model, right? Model stands for what's your money-making model, your money-making sweet spot, or how do you make money? You'll be surprised when I run into business owners and I ask them, what do you do and how do you make money? Unless it's very obvious that I am an electrician and I'm an attorney, or I'm a plumber. Then I start asking questions. And I think I need to understand the model. Like, model is how you make money. Now, most people think, well, I ask, hey, so I start asking questions about your model. So how do you make money? Well, I have a $5 million real estate business. It's great. Tell me more. What is your model? How do you make money? Well, we have commissions, and it's great. And what are your commissions? What is your cost of performing those commissions? Well, then, okay, so I have $1 million worth of gross profit, and then I go, great. All right, so what you have is $1 million business. So you sell 5 million, it costs you 4 million to provide the 5 million, you make $1 million, so that is your model. Okay, so your model is a commission model. Your model is how you make money. And if you don't know how to make money, you better figure that out real quick. Because if you don't know how to make money in your business, then you're gonna be out of business pretty soon. Why do you think the mortality rate is so high of business? They don't know how to make money. And they don't quickly identify what their model is. Now, it's very easy if you buy a franchise. Right? If you're buying a franchise, if you're buying McDonald's, it's going to set you back $1.5 million in net worth, and you have to put in $1 million. You have to build the real estate, but you're plugging yourself into a model. A model is the vehicle to make money, not just the revenue, but the understanding of all the financial piece. And you, as a business owner, you need to understand. You need to be a good steward of your own business metrics, which is, it's actually point number 4, right? But back to the model is, how do you make money? How exactly you make money? How much money you want to make, and all that kind of stuff.
Curious, Leo, like, let's say I'm a new client of yours, but I don't really know how to identify how I make money. Where do you start with a new client if they can't really pinpoint that?
That's a very good point. So number 4, which we're going to refer to in a little bit. Number 4 is metrics. Now, I get involved usually because people have been running a business for a long time, and then they just can't figure out their finances, and they come to me because I take a deeper dive into their numbers. I ask for the financial statements. I ask for access to their accounting software, and I want to understand the metrics. It's like this. When you walk into a doctor's office, what is the first thing that happens to you? What is the first thing you do after you meet the receptionist at a doctor's office? So you're going for your annual checkup. What happens, Josh?
Other than waiting in the waiting room for a long time, typically they're going to take your vitals.
They're going to take
blood pressure,
they're going to, right?
temperature, etc.
So what happens is you come in, right? And after they make sure that you have the insurance to pay, that you're going to have the ability to pay, they're going to sit you down, and then they're going to call you into a separate room, and there's going to be the nurse assistant or the nurse practitioner or somebody who is going to actually weigh you. What is your weight? What is your body temperature? What is your blood pressure? Right? And whatever other vitals, the pulse, and plus if they have taken some blood work beforehand, before you come in, they'll have those readings as well. So when you walk into the doctor at last, the doctor will already know your height, your weight, your pulse, your blood pressure, and whatever other readings they have. And they're going to have a pretty good idea of what's wrong with you. Now, they may ask you, hey, Josh, how do you feeling? And you're going to say, well, I feel great. He says, that's funny, because your blood pressure is 180 over 120. Now, if you don't know what your blood pressure is, that's a whole other thing, but you need to know what your blood pressure is. And the doctor will be alarmed because they say, wait a minute, and your resting heart rate it's 100 when it should be about 60 to 70. So is there something wrong with you? Maybe, but you don't know that yet. So I get involved on the metric side. But then I want to know how people make money. Is if you're selling something, I want to know, okay, how much does it cost to acquire that something that you sell, right? We are all in the arbitrage business, right? You buy low, you sell high, right? And you profit from the difference. So if I buy something for $1, and I can tell you that's $1, and I sell it for $2, my profit model is a 50% gross profit, right? If I sell 1 million units of it, I can actually forecast into the future. Does that help? Number 2, it's model. You gotta know your model.
So Leo, step 3 is marketing, and I'm a sales guy, so I'm in sales. So there's that part of me that does marketing as well. But for someone like you who's really helping business owners scale and understand their business better, how do you differentiate between sales and marketing when you're talking to a new client?
Great question. So first you need to understand what the difference is. So what is marketing? Right? Marketing is the creating an environment where you are known and where people want to buy. Right? Marketing is at the tip of the spear. Right? So you need to let people be aware of you. How do they find you? You know, how are they going to get to know you? How are they going to hear about you? How often are they going to hear about you? All of that, you heard it say that it takes about 7 times you're hearing a message before the message is actually heard. Now, you got the brand names, again, back to McDonald's, and whenever I'm on the road, it usually takes you 7 times to hear something before you act on it, right? It's very easy on the food side. So what happens is you're going to hear something on the radio the night, as you're driving to work, but the night before you saw an ad, right? Right? And you're going to see an ad, you're going to see it multiple times throughout the night. Then you're driving, you hear it on the radio, and you stop by a doctor's office, you went to the doctor, right? And you picked it up, and there's an ad for McDonald's. So you've heard it, you've watched it, now you're looking at it again. And then is it coincidence once you get on the road and you get hungry, you're going to think about McDonald's? Yes. That's marketing. Now, what is sales? Sales is the act of closing in. It's the personal connection. It's getting people to buy. People hate to be sold, but they love to buy, right? I love to buy, but I hate to be sold. So if you did your marketing, if you created the awareness and the branding, and every branding has a message. If the message is right and it resonates with people, selling, which is the actually capturing of that revenue, the closing, if you will, it makes it so much easier. Now let me throw you some terminology. In marketing, we measure the lifetime value of a customer, of the cost to acquire a customer. So that formula is LTV over CAC, or LTV over CAC. That's a very important number for those of you who are raising capital, right? LTV over CAC, right? Your lifetime value of your customer over the cost to acquire that customer. So if the lifetime value of a customer, say, is $5,000, and it costs you $1,000 to acquire that customer by any means necessary, by radio, TV, print, social media, and whatever else, but you're going to get $5,000 on top, would it behoove you to spend $1,000 to make $5,000? Right, so the return would be 5x. But the marketing drives everything. And it's so important. It's what does your brand stand for? Why do you stand in the marketplace? What makes you so unique? What is your unique selling proposition? I love this book by Seth Godin called The Purple Cow. It came out in the 90s. Seth Godin is like the godfather of marketing. And I love picking up that book, and I had to understand the concept of marketing is what makes you your unique selling proposition, right? What makes you so unique that people are going to stop? You're driving down the freeway, and then you see green, and black and white cows, and all of a sudden you see this purple cow. Are you going to stop and pay notice? Right? That it's marketing. Making your product, so for people who are, you want to stand out, and if you are the business where everybody is open from 8 to 5, and you open from 8 to 6, are you going to stand out for being 1 hour open later? Maybe, maybe not. But what would be so unique in marketing would be like, we're going to go from being open 8 hours a day to be open 24 hours a day. That's an eye-opening. So marketing is what makes you so unique that you stand out, and it creates an environment in which you want to be sold. Because we love to buy, but we hate to be sold. That's number 3, marketing.
So Leah, I'm looking at step 4 here, which I know you're very passionate about, metrics. And one of the things that I've heard you talk about in front of prospects is KPIs, or key performance indicators. Tell us what that is and why that's so important.
Well, Josh, thank you. You see, ironically, so we talked about so far, mindset, model, marketing, and metrics. I'm usually asked to get involved in a company at the metrics level. Okay. And so And metrics has two components. It's KPIs for key performance indicators and financial statements, and they go hand in hand. Remember this whole exercise that we did about talking about going into the doctor's office and having your vitals read and checked by the doctor? Well, there's also another analogy. Can you imagine yourself, and this is kind of how I will present to you the key performance indicators, is measuring what matters in your business. Ronald Reagan said, inspect what you expect. So imagine down the road driving on a highway or a freeway if you're in California, and you're driving, right? And then all of a sudden you're in your car, everything, all the lights, you can see all the, the dashboards, all this, all the different things that you see on a dashboard, and then it goes away. Now we have no dashboard. Right? How will you know how fast you're going, or whether you needed to slow down if you don't have a dashboard? Well, how will you know how much gas you have, and how many gas in the tank if you don't have a dashboard? How will you know if the car is working properly, if the computer on board is working properly if you don't have a dashboard? The things that we take for granted in our car become very evident when you don't have a dashboard. We think same as with your business. I am passionate about building these dashboards for my clients and for our clients so they know exactly how they're driving their business, right? This business, to grow, to scale, to get it to the next level, you have to act like the big boys do. The bigger companies, $100 million and above, already figured all this thing out. They understand their model of business, but they also know how to measure what matters, right? Does everything matter in your business? No. But the things that matter, you need to understand those and you need to measure. So a key performance indicators could be profit per employee. It could be revenue per employee, right? It's kind of become a vanity metric for big companies like Facebook and Google. Hey, we want $1 million per employee. If you have 2,000 employees, you have a $2 billion company. I like to take it to a more granular level. To me, it's more like profit per employee, right? Whether it's gross profit or net profit. You may actually have your gross margin, what are the sales minus your cost of goods. I'm very interested in knowing what your cost of goods is whenever there is a cost associated with it. Now, if you're in a service delivery model, as I said, as I mentioned in other videos, if you have a service delivery model, you really don't have anything, you don't have to buy anything to sell something, right? But if you actually are in the manufacturing business, you're in the construction business, the cost of goods sold matter. The percentage of completion, does it matter to you? Your payroll as a percentage of sales. Now, I have multiple clients in the service delivery model, they actually provide a service. There's really only two things. You either sell the product or you provide a service. If you're providing a service, how much of your sales is your payroll? Right, your wages and salaries and your benefits and all of those things. And are you measuring and tracking those? Your net profit. If you have subordinated debt, if you're working with a bank, you want to know your current ratio. That's a KPI. That's a key performance indicator. Your current assets over your current liabilities, which you've heard me talk about before. Your debt service coverage ratio, which is your cash flow over your debt service. That's got to be at least 1.2, 1.25, depending on the bank, right? Your current ratio should be 1.5 or higher over 1. Your debt to equity, if you're heavily leveraged, that'll show. But a lot of companies don't know that, and they don't even know. So here you are going to a bank trying to get financing, only to find out that all your vitals were wrong, and you're actually dying, and you're in a gurney, and then no bank is going to want to give you money. That's why it's so important to know. You need to know your metrics. So those key performance indicators, right? So does that help?
Yes, very much. I'm curious though, does every industry have a different KPI? Like someone that's in manufacturing versus sales or trucking? I mean, are KPIs going to vary based on the type of business that someone is in?
Yes. The short answer is yes. There's a set of general KPIs that can apply to about any industry vertical, but there are specific KPIs for industries. Like for instance, you're mentioning logistics and transportation, delivery. Our percentage of delivery or delivering on time. On-time delivery matters. If you're FedEx, You want to make sure that everything gets delivered on time, right? You're banking on that. Are you within 10% of the time that you said you were going to be there? Fuel efficiency, percentage of fuel over delivery, the cost to maintain the units that are going to get there as a percentage of the revenue that you're getting from them. All of those things matter. If you are in the manufacturing, right? The cost of raw goods, in that, if you sell something for $2, does it really cost 50 cents to make it? You want to track that. We call that gross profit, right? You got your net revenue, your revenue minus your cost of goods sold gives you your gross profit. So every industry has specific key performance indicators. What we go in there, we identify what the industry vertical is and what are those key performance indicators that apply to that industry. And we let our clients know, hey, look, this is what your industry is measuring. You should be measuring the same, right? And then we get into specific as far as the business. But that's only one component of metrics. The other one is your financial statements. You better be looking at your financial statements. You better be studying and discussing your financial statements with a trusted advisor once a month. I expect all of our clients to be discussing their financials with me around the 20th, the third or fourth week of the month, the latest. And then you're looking at all these things, your financial statements as your profit and loss or your income statement and your balance sheet and your statement of cash flows. They all talk to each other. And in my world, accounting is the language of business. Now, if English is the international language of business, well, accounting is the true language of business. If you don't know accounting, you're not speaking business. So if you're a business owner, you need to understand accounting. Now, do you need to know everything that I know? No, but you have to know, this is when scaling is getting the right people. Jim Collins wrote a great book, Good to Great, maybe 10, 15 years ago. But there's a follow-up, and then he talks about getting the right people on the bus. Well, to me is you got to get the right people on the bus and the right seats of the bus. Now, as an entrepreneur, you can't do everything, but you got to get the right people to help you with the right things. And accounting cannot be ignored. So metrics is key. Metrics, you're gonna measure things like what we talked about in marketing, right? The lifetime value of a customer over the cost to acquire a customer. So those things reside in accounting, and we build those metrics and those KPIs around those financials, so they go hand in hand. So that's number 4, metrics.
All right, Leo, let's dive into step 5, massive action. You have to start somewhere, and as you said, you don't want to just be the same as everybody else. How do you stand out? And one of the things I know you like to talk about is momentum. How do you gain momentum? How do you take that energy, push it in motion, and get to that next level? So what does massive action mean to you, and how do you relay that to your clients?
Great. It's a great way. Massive action to me, it's a critical component of the 5 steps, right? So just to recap, we got the mindset. If the mindset is not right, nothing will work, right? Then we talk about, the model. Now you have to have a business model that works, a money-making model. Then 3, move on to marketing side. We spend a lot of time talking about marketing. On the 4th one, we talked about the metrics. Usually when I come in and involved in a company is on the metric side. Momentum is a key. It's like gas to fire. If you already dialed down everything, if you believe in your heart of hearts that you need to be at the next level, that you believe in your heart of hearts that you can actually make 50,000 a month, and you can generate 50,000 a month in sales, or even 2 million in sales, and you believe that, and everything else works, well, then the massive action is this. That's what's going to add, gas to the fire. Think about massive action. It's critical today because social media, everything is everywhere now, right? So, hold on, get my notes here. So check this out. Liftoff, rocket fuel, right? I have this in my notes. So the momentum is so critical because from 0 to 1 takes an enormous amount of action, just like because inertia, because gravity. You have to put, 90% of rocket fuel basically on a rocket going to the moon or going into space rocket, it's going to consume 90% of its energy from just getting off the ground for the first inch. You have to attack your business with massive action, because in a sea of sameness with everybody else the same, and you need to stand out, you need to do so much more than everybody else just to get off the ground. Right? Massive action means different things, but to me, it's, the whole domino effect, right? The energy that moved the first, different people talk about it in different books, but the concept is the same, right? So say, for instance, you have the first domino, and the energy in joules that it takes to move the first domino to the next domino, it's like negligible. It's nothing, 0.005 joules of energy. You can actually do it with your pinky. But the momentum that it builds as go from the first domino to the second domino, you can basically topple over with the amount of energy that the Leaning Tower of Pisa or the Eiffel Tower. Momentum is everything. And let me tell you, when you already have momentum, those habits that you've been working so hard kick in, because you go into what I call unconscious competence. This whole quadrant of competence to unconscious competence. You are operating at a level that most people, your competitors, will not be able to attain. So we both have somebody whom we respect. You need to read that book, but you haven't read that book. But
yeah. So Grant Cardone
yes.
is a favorite author of yours. He talks a lot about massive action. How do you help your clients maybe take that first step to get the momentum? Because some people maybe can't identify what that looks like.
Well, so good. I start asking questions. What are you guys do different? What are you doing? And how are you being disproportionately intentional about growing your business? Remember, mindset is already there, right? If you believe that you can, you will, right? Whether you think you can or cannot, you're right. But they believe that already. So I ask them, what are you doing practically to go after those sales? Right? Well, we're making 5 or 3 sales calls a day. We are thinking about sending a couple of pieces of marketing. Would that be massive action to you?
Not at all.
Right. Massive action is how desperately do you want to get into the, for instance, if you're doing social media postings once a week, you probably need to do a whole lot better than that, right? You got to become ubiquitous in the marketplace. And some of those guys like Gary Vee and Grant Cardone, they're seemingly everywhere in every media. They work hard at their craft. The whole thing about mastery, right? It takes, 10,000 hours to be good at anything. Well, that mastery happens by just putting in the work, right? The super athletes and all that, they didn't get there overnight. They put on how badly do you want it? Right? How badly do you want to be successful? If you're ready to scale, you just got to put in the work. You got to believe that you can, but you got to put in the work. And something else happens on your way to scaling and your way to becoming big. You become big as you experience big. I love to put myself in uncomfortable situations so we can grow. And this whole exercise about that YouTube channel is that, right? But you become big as you experience big. Now, that's not my quote. That came from Gary Keller, from the big, the one thing that you need to do is, that's a really great concept. But the takeaway is you become big as you experience big. As you begin to have those domino effects and you start to believe that you can, and think all of a sudden, if you were not capable of making, 10 calls an hour, now you can make those calls. And, I know very successful realtors who are moving, 300 escrows a year that have become masters at dialing for dollars. Yeah. Massive act. You can have all those 4 pieces, but you stop working, you may believe, but it's almost dissonant to believe that you can do something and you won't do it. And I hate it with people that says, I'm going to do this, but they don't. We talked about it over lunch. Is let your yes be yes and your no be no. And it's really a spiritual principle in Matthew 5:17, and all your dealings, let your yes be yes and your no be no. So that is massive action. Please comment below. Let me know what you think. Of the steps that we've gone over so far, which one impacted you the most and why? If you want to join a community of like-minded successful entrepreneurs just like you, then join our Facebook group at the link below, where I share tips, tactics, and strategies on how my clients are growing their businesses to 7 figures and beyond.